Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Well, welcome back, everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, episode 202. And I have the lovely Carrie Benedet here with me. How are you, Carrie?
I'm super. I'm great.
I love it. You are indeed. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Darren. I should have said I'm thriving. That's what I should have said. That would make it even better. But you look like, listen, anytime I meet you, Darren, you've got that great smile on your face. And I know the cap hides a little bit, but it adds some character, right? And you've got to have a good set of specs.
Yeah, I got my new specs lately. These are my new Ray-Ban specs. I love it.
I know, very groovy. Well, I've been wearing glasses since I was 3 years old. So they're sort of part of me. So, you know, if I've got a couple of different pairs on, well, then that's part of the deal.
Yeah, and your glasses are really great, really nice frames. But for everyone who wants to know a little bit more about Carrie, apart from her fantastic dress sense, Carrie Benedet, Leadership Optimiser, has 25 years experience across education, government, and business. Our people leaders need to have strong relational leadership skills. Carrie works to amp up people's confidence and empathy. Investing in your well-being culture increases respect, engagement, and thriving relationships, essential due to the speed of ongoing workplace change. In order to have it, you must do it. So true, Carrie. I love it. It's one of my favorite topics.
Well, you know what? We're worth taking a leap of faith in ourselves, aren't we, Darren?
We are indeed.
We've got to be supercharged.
Indeed.
And I really like that notion of, making sure that our internal combustion engine is working really well, because there are days where it's harder to do what we want to do than the next day, which is easier.
So true. Like, it's amazing. These days, there's so much more emphasis put on attitude, drive, confidence, empathy, like all that personal stuff. It's not so much about what have you done, where did you go to university, what degree do you have, what skills have you acquired. It's all about what have you got internally that's going to help you get through it.
Well, I've got a girlfriend who says to me, she says, you are the eternal optimist. She said, I'm a realist. And it makes you think. And I go, you know what? There are days when I don't actually feel like the eternal optimist, but I've got some skills and hacks up my sleeve that I've learnt over the years.
I love that.
To actually turn it around. So, listeners, you won't know this, but just before we went live, Darren caught me having a bit of a jig to one of my favourite playlists.
She was indeed.
and he's starting to laugh, and I went, oops, you caught me. But you know what? I don't care these days. With all the decades I've got under my belt now, I think one of the learnings has been you can become who you are and who you want to be more freely as you age. I think that's that notion.
Absolutely. You definitely, I think the wisdom and the freedom and the confidence you get as you get a bit older makes a big difference.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a lifetime. I think there's decades of increments, So, absolutely. Hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's like a kick in the butt, but you can look back on it and dwell in it, or you can look back on it and go, where are the gifts? You can just flip it upside down, and that's what I like to do. And then I've got people who I can ring up and listen and tell them I've had an absolutely bugger of a day, pardon my French. I think that's about as bad as I'll get. But a lousy day, and where can I find that little sliver of joy or hope? And I think that's what's important. So So your smile is one of those.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Now, I'd love to know a bit more about your history. So tell us a bit more about your story. How did you fall into this line of work? Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, my history is that I grew up in a country town. I'm the eldest of six. My parents had a newsagent, and the six of us basically helped build the business.
Amazing.
the foothills of the Snowy Mountain Scheme in Australia, which is now undergoing another renovation.
Yep.
Provided a fabulous country town to bring 6 children up.
Beautiful.
And we didn't know much more than going to church, listening to politics, and going to the shop and being of service.
Okay.
That was sort of our triangle of
Nice.
influence.
Did you
But
all
we
go
did
to work
play.
in the shop after school?
Yeah, after school, holidays,
Weekends, holidays?
uni jobs,
Wow.
that's what we learned, customer service there.
Yep.
And it was one of the, I think, significant things that we did learn. And then we were offered, mum and dad's thought, well, you've got to leave somehow. So they gave us 2 years of boarding school. So we left the country town, we came down to Sydney.
Wow.
And we had 2 years of boarding school. And then a number of us went on to uni and various things like that. So I did a teaching degree. And it was suggested in those days, it was suggested that teaching was a very good career for a woman to have, because she could still look after the family and contribute to the income.
Nice.
Right?
Yep.
And so that was so a number of us are teachers and married teachers, or our partners are teachers, right? And a number of our children are teaching. So it's an interesting, an interesting influence. So I married Luciano. I married him, and we've been married now for going on 41 years, would you believe?
Hey.
We've known each other for about 43. So I think you get less for murder, don't you, Darren? Anyway, so we have 4 children. We've now got 7 little Australians, which is just beautiful watching that. So I stayed at home for a decade. Because I was textiles trained, I sewed beautiful, designed, sewed from scratch, calico, toiles into gowns, beaded them, made a whole lot of cash money when we had interest rates at 17.5%. And we had 4 kids, and we lived on $200 a week.
Wow.
So I did that while Luch was teaching. So I did that. And then I got interested in parent groups, and sort of being able to, I think because I was able to have a balanced viewpoint on things, I put my hand up and said, I'll come down and help with the parent group. And because I've always believed that the village educates the child, and that the parents are the first educators of your children. So I did that, and then somebody said, well, come in for a job. So I ended up doing a role as a parent educator. And I was probably a safe bet because I was teacher trained and I had an understanding of the context of education. And I'd started to get particular roles at diocesan and state level. So I ended up doing a whole lot of roles. I chaired the first Catholic parent body for New South Wales and the ACT. I did that.
God. There you go.
I was an independent member of the Board of Studies, which I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed. So we were independent parent voice on pushing new curriculum through, a whole lot of stuff. But I got to meet the ministers and various things, whether it was a transport issue, an education issue, anything like that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So that political bit of me that I'd grown up near was sort of satisfied. And after doing the parent role, I then said, well, I need a bit of a change. So I went into learning and development, same organisation. So I was in Sydney Catholic schools for about 24 years. And then I decided to make a break. I had a significant birthday, and I decided to walk the Kokoda Trail in Papua New Guinea. So I probably did one of the hardest walks in the world as my first walk. I had a pair of boots that I hadn't broken in, so I lost 7 toenails and I had no skin on the back of my heels. I lost 10 kilos in 8 days.
Oh my God. Jeez.
One night I could have possibly died, so that was an epiphany of a situation. But I tell you what, it was the most mammoth thing I have ever done in my life, and it is now the reason why I do what I do. So I went back to work. They all just went, oh my God, we don't believe what you've just been through, and you did it. And I went, I said, I could have been fitter, but I said, I think it was up here. I think it was the mind games. At the time, I had someone getting married and leaving the state and going interstate to have their family, others doing whatever, So my whole role as that mother figure and the, grand poobah of the family, that was just shifting. So I worked in people and culture, and I had the best opportunities to develop myself. and take on doing a lot of development courses for leaders, such as the coaching program, emotional intelligence certifications and programs. And I loved that. So it came to a spot when I had another significant birthday. I went, time's up, girlie. You're going to go and do what you really love to do. There's a whole lot of stuff here you're not enjoying. They need a change. I always believe in people moving through their jobs.
Yep.
So I initiated a see you later baby. And so I went out on my own. So I'm still here.
Good. Well, what a great story. Well done.
Yeah, so that's me. And I'm a pretty ordinary gal, really. And the what's happened in the last few years with COVID, and I've got to thank COVID in a way. It was tough going because most of the work that I had lined up just totally got pulled.
Yeah.
What I didn't lose was my access to technology. So each week I would just go around the world. So every week I'd be visiting countries all over the world, talking to most amazing people. So I started the podcast up, Thriving Matters podcast, if you're interested, listeners. But I've gotten to know the most incredible people. Now, this year has been the year where I'm getting to meet a lot of those people face to face.
Oh, isn't that great?
And that's going to continue. So that's me.
Well done. Well, that's no small achievement. You've done extremely well.
Well,
and you've obviously got a mental drive and a mental dexterity to just take on new things and make them work. You know, a lot of people would be scared.
Well, what came out of Kokoda was the fact that why would I come home when 5 out of the 30 I went with were airlifted out?
Oh, God.
With it, the first afternoon, one guy did his patella on the walk down to Goldie Creek. And I'm thinking, well, this particular night that I was wrapped around a rubber tree, sliding in torrential monsoonal rain, being held onto by three of the trekkers who we were paired up with.
Oh, my God.
Why I had to let go of that tree, Darren, and I had to give them my hand and they pulled me up. It was significant. I walked into camp that night absolutely shaking. I couldn't stop.
Boy.
And after you come home and you just go, what the hell did you just do?
Yeah.
And the feeling, and I just went, this is all about my resiliency skills, the way I'm processing this. There were days where, there was a whole lot of screaming and yelling going up there in the jungle, basically jungle, or when you're trying to lift your leg out of 1.5 meter high marshes, right, to lift your leg up to make the next step, because that's why you lost the 10 kilos. I should go up there again and try and do it, but I'm glad I did it for the 50th, because a decade on, there's lessons learned, and I still look back on it and go, holy dooly, you did a good job, girl. You came home and now you're using that. So I think every one of us, and the reason I tell you that is, Darren, is because every one of us has got a Kokoda story.
Yep.
There are parents who can't get out of bed every morning and their kids are being the parents. There are elderly people who don't want to be here anymore. They've chronic illnesses all their life. There are ordinary guys and gals who have got some really significant conditions, mental illness. And I think humanity is calling us, I think, in the last few years to look after each other, to actually have a different perspective and treat each other with the respect and kindness that we all deserve.
So true. Love it.
Anyway, I'm rambling.
Well, no, not at all. And again, I forgot to mention the name of this podcast, actually. So the name of the podcast, or the title of this episode, is Take a Leap of Faith in You. So everything Carrie's just described is really living exactly that philosophy.
And look, there's plenty. Since then, I've done some other walks everywhere, and they're usually with an element of physicality and challenge. And I do them by myself, or I do them with a group of people I don't know, or I do them with people I do know. But I look back on it and I go, well, you know what? Nothing is insurmountable these days, because we only have to ask for help. And I never used to. As a young mum, I never asked for help. And that martyr in me now, I think that has to vanish. We've got to get rid of that.
There's so much information out there too. There's so much information in terms of audiobooks, podcasts, stuff on the web. I mean, you can learn about everything these days.
Yeah, you can learn a new method of playing the piano,
It's incredible how much stuff's out there.
Easily. So, thank you for asking. But the leap of faith is critical. And a lot of the people I work with, they'll say to me, you actually took a leap of faith in me, and now I can do that for myself.
Yeah.
And I just think if that's something you can give and you don't expect anything in return, I think that's a beautiful way to be. So
Definitely. Love it. Now, I want to talk a bit about leadership, obviously, because that's your speciality, and business culture. So, I mean, that's a topic that's getting more and more airplay every day, every year. Like we're talking about culture. Do you think we're doing a good job, or we still have a lot to learn?
Oh, well, I think we still have a lot to learn. And that's not saying that there's a whole lot wrong with it at the moment, but I think we always can improve. We can always amp up what we're doing.
Yep.
What we've got, though, is a whole lot of research and literature that has been done pre-COVID, pandemic, post, and so that's at our fingertips. We've got a whole lot of this. What we need are the practical examples of investing in our people and how we're treating them. And what we're really talking about now, and what's evident nearly in lots of conversations, is this notion of fatigue, of being overwhelmed, and they're using words like trauma. So this notion of, we're going to tip that upside down and talk about how do we help our people be anti-fragile. Anti-fragility is important.
Or
and
resilient.
Resilient, resilient. And more and more we're looking at, well, demanding, people I talk to, if I go to Pilates or whoever I talk to who's in big organisations in the city, are saying, I said, how's it going? Oh, they're trying to get us back 3 days a week. They're having a really hard time getting people back now to work in the offices when they're actually quite liking working at home. So we're in a totally transitional place. But I think we're getting more and more evidence that you can't demand a particular way of behaviour if you don't invest in the voice of your people and you're transparent in what you do. So the leadership stuff is super interesting because, Darren, you and I are going to be in the box long enough, right? We're here for a certain amount of time, but our younger generations are the leaders of tomorrow.
That's right.
So that's where I'm interested. I want to know that my grandkids, they range from 2 to 12 now, they're going to be possible leaders in whatever they do. I don't, whether they're the best balloon blower or face painter or best head of, government department, doesn't matter what they do. They actually have to make sure that humanity comes first.
Yep. And do you think that the younger generation have the skills and the internal, or the softer skills and the internal makeup to handle leadership?
Well, like all of us, how do we learn it? We've got to have some good role models. We've got to have the opportunity to develop. We've got to be moved into being self-directed and self-motivated. So if those opportunities come up, well, they're going to be great.
Yep.
There are different generational traits and behaviours.
Absolutely.
And this instantaneous world that we're living in, I'm even catch myself getting frustrated, why isn't this quicker? Why have I got slow Wi-Fi today? I want to get this done,
That's right.
But there's plenty of insights, talking to your podcast guests, what they'll say to you and their outlook on life. And I just think we just got to open up our curiosity. We just got to become like Alice in Wonderland or, whatever it is, and really go down the rabbit hole and find out why people do what they do. How did they learn to do it? What do they want to do that they haven't had the opportunity to do it? And our role as mentors and coaches and significant others is really critical. So I think we can do better. Number one, yes, we can do better. Number two, we've got some great examples, and we should be tapping into the diverse nature of our generational collective value, really.
Yep, nice. So, I mean, what do you think are some of the traits that are going to make leaders shine and thrive in the future?
You have to be confident in what you do, what you seek out to help you with, who you seek out to help you with, what skills you need, and you also need to be empathetic. We need to have an appreciation of our own emotions and how they affect our decisions, our performance, and our behaviours.
Nice.
And that applies then to the people we work with. We actually have to have an understanding of them as well. And together we lead ourselves so we can lead others. So that self-awareness piece is absolutely critical.
Yep.
Because you can have a strategy, you can get plenty of people in to go, bang, here's the big strategy, but to actually do it and to understand what your people need to support them to go the next step.
Yep.
And to move into something, that's the critical part.
Yeah. And I think also as a leader, you have to, these days, you're busier and busier. There's more and more responsibility. You have to know what to delegate. So I think self-awareness is key, because you have to know, number one, what to delegate, but also what you're not so good at.
Yeah. And we can all admit in a conversation that I'm not so good at this or that. But when it comes to major projects, initiatives, strategies for, say, your business or your large organisation, well, the pressure's on.
Yeah.
Because we've got a commercial model. We've got a capitalistic commercial model here. So we all need to make some money. We all need to pay the bills. We need to, to be able to choose what we spend that money on. So we're adults. So we've got to be treated like adults, not like children. So and that's a great model, isn't it? That model of interdependence on a parent, moving to independence, So total dependence, interdependence, dependence. And I think we can mirror. We often forget about that. We can learn a lot from how we grew up, or how we watch our grandchildren grow up and the stages of their development.
Absolutely. I mean, as we mentioned just before in the podcast, there are role models around us all the time. Our family, our friends, our communities, our work colleagues. We know there's people to draw from all the time.
Well, Darren, you just made me think the good, the bad, the ugly. But instead of saying that about the people that we, who are around us, I just think I'll talk about the licorice all sorts, because the kids, I often talk about my children as the licorice all sorts, and they quite like it, actually, because it gives them a sense of their own identity. Yeah. Not all the licorice all sorts in the pack are the same, right?
That's right.
And if you look at the people that you work with, or who you gravitate towards, who you're curious about, you want to learn from, well, stripes, spots, colours, textures, we're all valuable.
Definitely, we need all these different characters and personalities to make up the whole.
Well, you don't want to be monochrome. That'd be dead boring. I mean, I like black and white, don't get me wrong, but it's far better if there's a little bit of colour.
Absolutely. How boring would it be if we're all the same? Oh my God. Now, I'd love to talk a bit more about curiosity as well, because, it's such an interesting trait, and it's such a trait that's very infantile and childlike, but it's beautiful. And we've lost it over the years. Like, as you get older and you get into business and you get into, school, it's like almost the curiosity has been beaten out of you.
Yeah, because the pressure of the task orientation is there.
You put in a box, you have a deadline, you have to follow rules.
Yeah.
You don't even think outside the box. You don't get curious anymore. You just follow rules, you follow orders. And I think curiosity is the most beautiful thing. And it's very, maybe infantile is not the right word, but it's very childlike and innocent. And it's a beautiful thing. It's powerful.
It is powerful. And Darren, while you're saying that, it just occurred to me that really the whole increase in us looking at ways to be mindful, to be present, I think opens up this notion of curiosity even more. So a lot of people I talk to have got the daily habits, and they'll have a meditation or journaling, reading a stack of books beside the bed, and they, what do I read? And I read a range of different things. Or someone sharing a podcast or an audio book, or, all that type of thing. So finding out, two new things that they didn't know every day, So curiosity, I mean, there's a whole lot of data on retired people and what type of things they do, So I think they have the biggest uptake of online magazines, journals, newspaper, current affairs, blah, blah, blah.
They all do a lot of different courses as well. They get into different hobbies.
Have a look at Mind Valley and the reach of Mind Valley. Absolutely stunning for self-development. And a lot of it is around being more curious, leaning into it. So I think, curiosity, I only have to watch the grandkids when they're little and listen. So it's not just watching, observing, it's actually listening.
Yeah.
And then just sitting back and going, oh, tell me more. Just tell me why are you telling me that?
Yeah.
Tell me all about that story. And the stories are just amazing. So I think go back, if you get the chance, be around little people.
Definitely.
Who are, can create these incredible stories.
Yep.
Their
imagination is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. So the more curious we are, I think it also helps us put into perspective our own judgments and assumptions.
Definitely.
And what and the labels that we give ourselves,
Yep.
So that's the thing about leadership, isn't it, though? It's about where do we find the space to think about our values, beliefs, and assumptions.
That's right. Love it.
And so curiosity comes into that, because I love, how our Indigenous in Australia, we often talk about on country.
Yeah.
I've taken a lot of people away on country, and I was thinking about this podcast today, and I thought, curiosity is about being in, on, and with country as a metaphor.
Yep.
Because we were, before COVID, we actually took a group of educational leaders up to East Arnhem Land. We lived at Ninakai with the Yolngu people, and it was absolutely stunning. Now, part of the stunningness of it was so hot, and we had the Arnhem Sea just on the riverbank.
Wow.
However, we could not get in and get cool because there were other inhabitants in the Arnhem Sea that would have just eaten us, right? So so this notion of being in and on country and with country isn't necessarily easy, right? It's not glamorous always, or luxurious.
That's right.
We could tip that up and go, it's luxurious in the experience of being there in the moment and understanding the difference that's coming up for us from what we've discovered. Yeah.
Definitely. I love it. And I think, for me, creativity and curiosity and art and being artistic is all linked.
Are you artistic? You're a photographer.
Yeah, to a degree, yes, I am.
Yes, of course you are. Your photographs. I mean, what a lens to look through. Yeah. And that's what I think what leadership's all about. It's about looking through a lens that can give you a different perspective, a different option, different ways of expressing or communicating yourself. And so the art world is just beautiful. It's a bit like dancing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because to create a great team, to create a great culture, can be you have to think very laterally. You have to think very creatively, because everybody's different. Everybody's got a different set of, drivers. Yeah. And it's up to you to kind of put that all together into this beautiful mixture. Yeah. And it's very creative. So I think, you have to take time out to get into that creative space.
Well, you've got to nourish it, don't you? Yeah. I mean, we're humans. We're absolutely magnificent beings. When you think about how we're put together, how we can reproduce, how we can do amazing, amazing feats, but we have to nourish that. And it's the same for your leadership. Yep. Same for your curiosity. You have to nourish it. Yep. So, what's not working, get rid of it. For God's sake, don't keep doing what's not working. So.
And where do you feel that, when you talk to a lot of leaders these days, where do you feel that what's their biggest challenge?
People often.
I mean, just getting along with people, or motivating people, or
it's a whole range. It's a whole range. It's sometimes themselves as a person.
Yeah.
And others. And I think, strategy, I've heard people say, I wish people would just let me do my work and, nobody show up, or just let me get on with my work. And I'm going, tell me what your work is. Does it actually involve in the industries and businesses where people are involved? People seem to be, I think, the biggest thing, managing differences of different behaviours and reactions to certain things, how fatigued, or that notion of well-being is a big issue at the moment. Having a place where you can be transparent in your behaviour and treatment of each other, but respectful at the same time. So it's not letting it all hang out, but it's being able to skill yourself enough to know what's appropriate, what's not. And then I always say where you need support and not be ashamed of getting support. But I think people, I've got a latest hashtag at the moment is people are the profession. Hashtag people are the profession. Everywhere you go, if someone will complain, someone wants to start to whinge or complain or tell you minute by minute blows of what somebody said to them and did to them, and that is seducing, right? It's quite seductive that you start to believe that as the truth. And then we put our own bias on it, or what is it we think we know about the person. And on the whole, it's a whole lot of rubbish. Our preoccupation with knowing other people's business is pretty amazing.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, so I think people. And I now seem to be able to connect with people who have similar interests, who are interested in people and how you build a relationship. Not as an intimate relationship, but as a business relationship as well as a leadership relationship.
Definitely.
And we need all types. We need all types of interests, views, and we can't be afraid. Fear is one of the biggest drivers of our behaviour. So I think that goes with how people, that notion of people, the fear that we feel, and whether it either helps us go forward or backwards.
There's actually a beautiful quote that I heard once, and it said, "Replace fear with curiosity."
Oh, nice!
It's a beautiful
nice
phrase. Yeah,
nice. Oh, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, write that one down. It's a great one. Replace fear with
curiosity.
I can't remember if I knew who actually said that or not. I love it.
James Clear's Atomic Habits have there's some really interesting information. I mean, a lot of this is got a base in psychology and the neuroscience and why we react. So that's part of what I really love is helping people understand themselves. Not necessarily helping them, but being with them as they start to discover this. But when you understand yourself a bit more and you understand why someone might do it, you can then look at other behaviours of people that you find difficult to work with or just relate to, right? And I think
the most important thing is to just always ask yourself, take a step back and always ask yourself, okay, what might be some of the drivers for that behaviour? Instead of just judging them through your own lens, take a step back and say, okay, well, look, what might be going on here? Think about all the different parameters before you jump to any conclusions.
I always think there's more that the person's behaviour tells you more about them than you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Darren, I've got to tell you that I've probably been a fair queen around thinking everything that comment was about me. It's actually not about me. It's actually about somebody else.
That's right. Absolutely.
So it's taken a little while to actually learn that it's not about you. Plus, I'm married to someone who says, it's not about you, it's about them.
Of course. But you also raised a great point in that leaders these days, a lot of times, are promoted from a technical role or from being good at something into a leadership position, but they don't have the skills, in particular the people skills, to actually thrive in that leadership role. So I think it's very important for people to develop themselves as leaders and continually develop themselves, because leadership requires a whole different skill set to whatever you were doing before.
Well, often it's because you're really good at what you did. Someone goes, oh, you'll be a great leader.
Yeah,
well,
promote you to the manager, but that doesn't always work.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But I just want to ask the question, why would you set someone up for failure?
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you do that? To me, that's inhumane. It's hugely costly if you're in an organisation that does that. Or
would you shoot yourself in the foot before you even start?
Yeah. But we also know that it takes time to develop your leadership skills. So you've got to have the opportunity. And, with our younger generations, they're not loathing coming forward. I want to, I want to step forward. I want to do this or that. There are different generations who will wait to be asked. So we've still got this happening in the workforce at the moment. But learning to put yourself forward and being able to work out, getting the feedback on your productive behaviours and how consistent you are in doing those from people that you work with is crucial. So I've got a certification with Genos International, and Dr. Ben Palmer, that's he did PhD out of Swinburne. So it's an Australian company that's now international. And their assessment is all around our emotional intelligence competencies. So for workplace and then for leadership. And someone who has got the courage, has got the grit and guts to say, okay, I'll put my hand up and I want to find out more about how I can develop myself so I can, I've got an interest in doing something differently, going to a new position or, getting my side hustle up and running, and I need to know about me. Anyone who does a 360 is absolutely magic, because you get a feedback report. Not only do you get sort of an indication from, hit the button and how people rated, you also get the qualitative comments.
That's right.
And I recently debriefed a KLA coordinator at a college, and he'd been in education for such a long time. He did the 360, and he sat there when we had finished the report and the debrief, and his emotions just spilled over.
Wow.
And he said in all his time, he had never received any feedback like that ever. And he was just so grateful. And I thought, we should be doing more of these, because EI, the interesting thing with our emotional intelligence is that we can't ceiling it. Big secret, right? Stop the press. This is a newsflash. You cannot ceiling it. You can just get more sophisticated in applying it to different situations and decision-making that you're in.
Definitely.
So isn't that a plus, right? Isn't that?
Absolutely.
So it's that whole notion of being infinite in our ability to grow and learn and be more curious.
So true. I think, feedback is such an important tool for growth, but you've got to be resilient enough to take the feedback, positive and negative.
That's it. And look, and one of the other things is you can actually learn how to present the feedback.
Yep. In a certain
right? Not necessarily, I'm going to use a quite emotional term here, crucify somebody.
That's right.
Absolutely wipe them out so that they're absolutely stunned.
That's right.
There are ways to do it.
Yep.
And then add the support to move into a new direction, right? So I think that's what organisations can actually be better at doing as well.
I love that. I love it. Now, I believe that you are the founder and facilitator of a new business retreat in Bali very soon. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, yes. This is a great example of co-creation and collaboration of people who work for themselves, who've chosen that, who've come together. So I've taken people away. I've had retreats down the south coast of New South Wales myself, taken people away overseas within Australia. And I'm just blown away by what you can do in the space of a weekend, the space of, a longer time, 3 to 4 days, 5, whatever. When you get people together where you
in the right environment.
Right environment where you set up. So we're going to host a business retreat in Bali in June. It's actually a dream coming true, but it's hard work basically to get it done. But what we're going to do is look at how we can provide the space for people to really be able to stand in their own value, stand and be present for others, and be able to impact and influence other people around them, whether they've got a product or a service. So we're going to sharpen those up. So there's a whole lot around their embodiment for themselves, their well-being and their mindfulness. So we've got the well-being side of you and your business happening here. We've got the business structure and all the things that will help sharpen up where you are.
Right.
Because a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders, fantastic, they exhaust themselves, and they don't necessarily get all the dollars in that they need. So we're actually in a whole new
or the reverse. They get all the money, but they get no appreciation, no time at home,
that's it.
No structure.
Yeah. So we're looking at how do we create a balance there, and how do we then test that out in the market? So we're bringing together that opportunity. It's the space. It's out of your normal environment, around people who are curious as well, learning together and what comes out of that, and being able to use a culture. That notion of being on country, in country, that the cultural aspect, and what you learn. So Bali, absolutely stunning.
I love
Bali.
And I love the Balinese people as well. They got it. You could learn a lot from the Balinese people.
There you go. Look at all those qualities, the gentleness, the respect, their whole view on life. And that's why, oh my gosh, Darren, that's why people love traveling. Aussies are great travelers.
Yeah,
that's why we love exploring. It's so important to who we are and who we want to become. Yeah, so
love it. Oh, that's great. Well,
so you're going to join us. You're going to come and join us.
Check it out. And I'll put all the links to that as well in the show notes, if you like, so people can find out.
Thank you very much. That'd be great.
But I want to know more about how you work, and I want to give everybody the opportunity to learn about how you work. So tell us more about, how you work, how people can contact you.
Okie doke. Okay. Well, I work with individuals. I work with teams. That's really the great thing when you've got a leader who then applies what they're doing for themselves with their team. That's the learning, because the notion is we create leaders who are greater than we are. So we work at that. I bring together a coaching methodology with emotional intelligence in the leadership space. That's the favourite kumbaya moment for me. But it's not about me. It's about what I see happen for those that I work with. And I love it when I work with leaders, whether they're in their own businesses or in education, when they really have the heart and soul of their people at hand. They're really investing. They're willing to look at their budgets, their timetables, or how they organise things, and they're really putting the effort into building up the capacity to increase the impact of their people. Yeah. Now, that's what I do. When you work with me, you'll have some fun. Absolutely. Sure. We always have some fun. We actually have a community. You're expected to join in, and hopefully we make you feel valuable and welcome. But you'll dance, you'll laugh. We'll look at different ways to unravel the curiosity, the untold power. So it's a journey. It's a journey. Yeah. I do face-to-face, online. You can find me you can find me on every social there is. I use just recently, you'll find me ziplining.
Ziplining, that's a new one. I haven't even heard of that one. What's ziplining?
Oh yes, in a harness. Yes, between the treetops. Stand at the.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Illawarra Fly. I'm giving you a plug. Down just outside of Robinson, overlooking the beautiful on the escarpment, overlooking beautiful Shell Harbour at the base of Wollongong as you're going down the coast. But I did it for a 7-year-old's grandson's birthday. So. Zip lining. So I'll have a red hot shot at anything, Darren.
I can see that. even this podcast.
That's it. Even the podcast. So is there anything else you want to know about what I do?
That's great. So you work with individuals as well as corporates as a team? Either or, however.
Absolutely. Thank you for just asking that again. Individuals, yes. And one of the big groups at the moment that is really looking for new opportunities for employment are women in sort of that 50 age group. Mm-hmm. And with COVID and what's happened over the last couple of years, there's a number of them who have been told they're too old. So there's some ageism happening here. A number of them have lost their jobs, the partner, perhaps there could be a split up in relationships. So we're looking at the income base of lesser superannuation, all that sort of stuff. But they're the fastest growing group who are moving into poverty. Australia.
Wow.
Yeah. So the collective is critical. So that's the thing. There's plenty of people that I find people are quite magnificent. They have an outreach to many, many things. I like to think that the elders of the community, like me, getting on to being me, can have an influence on our younger leaders coming through, because they're the leaders of tomorrow. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely, you can, for sure. You've got so much gold to give, so much wisdom.
Well, we got a lot of wisdom, isn't it? I've got to tell you, I talk a lot, you know that. But I've got to say, I've tuned up my listening over the last couple of years, even more and more. And so when you tune up your listening, you tune up your intuition. Yes. And I think that's the gold in all this. And you just think about, well, just trust that feeling, whether it's an uneasy feeling or whether it's something that you're really going, yep, this is what I want to do. It's going to be difficult. And when you get into that, oh, my stomach's going, like I did when I got into that harness, just before I did the first zip line 2 weeks ago, I just went, whoa, I haven't felt that for a little while. So I tuned in and I went, okay, this is cool. This is cool.
This is good. This is growth.
If I don't feel that, it means I'm not growing. I'm not going the next step. So I think that's one of the ways I work as well.
Love it. Well done. Well, Carrie, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. You're always so full of life, full of energy, full of wisdom, full of great stories and experiences. I'm sure we could talk forever.
We could.
We could.
We could. Hey, Darren, have you got a favourite song at the moment?
Oh, at the moment, not at the moment. I just listen to all sorts of things. I've got a huge music collection.
Yeah.
But well, your favourite song?
Well, the one that I was playing when you caught me before we started recording was Wings by Little Mix. Now, this is one of my granddaughter's favourite songs.
There you go.
And it talks about having your wings and just flying with them, using them, flap them.
Wow.
So I think all of us can trust the wings we have, know that there are other wings around us. It's like the story of the geese. They all take a role. One of the birds flies to the front, but they take it in turns to lead.
Beautiful. I love it.
And I think that's what we all have to do. We actually have to take it in turns to trust and lead and support each other. So, Darren, thank you for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. Now, I always like to give my guest the last word. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with before we finish up?
Yes. Hashtag, just give it a red hot shot.
Love it. Fantastic. That's your own hashtag, I'm sure.
It is. And I have a little stand. One of my daughter-in-law has actually made it for me. One of my birthdays, she said, Carrie, I've been trying to think what to give you.
Just give it a red hot shot.
It sits on my desk. Give it a red hot shot.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Reach out to Carrie because she's fantastic in every way. So you can learn a lot from her, and she's, warm and friendly, and you can get along well, and she'll give so much value. It's not funny.
Well, thank you, Darren. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I've had a great afternoon. Thank you.
I'm glad. And everybody, we'll see you very, very soon for another episode. So stay tuned and enjoy the weekend. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@suspendedanimation.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. Also, if you have been thinking about putting your own podcast together and not sure where to begin, look no further. I run a really simple 3-part podcasting course, one-on-one with me, where I walk you through the entire podcasting journey. You will end up with a fantastic new podcast to start sharing right away. Feel free to get in touch to discuss further. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.